because you have an insight as a result of using it, you're a little smarter. The second time you use it, that intelligence comes with you to the second opportunity. So you go to another scale, right? Where am I on this scale? I see you have another realization. And when you go to the third scale, you take those two realizations with you to the third scale. So you see, as you proceed in this, you're getting smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. So this is what you might call a virtuous cycle.
Welcome to the Sustainability Transformation Podcast, where we normally explore the real world strategies and tools for driving sustainable impact. Today, we are looking into aspects of inner psychological side, and our guest is Jim Marshall, the creator of Septemics, a philosophic system that claims to map the hidden patterns behind human behavior, decision making, and transformation. So, Jim, welcome once again. Can you introduce yourself and describe how Septemics is a practical philosophical system?
Okay. Well, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I developed a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique, and between them, they span the spectrum of human experience. By which I mean any problem, dilemma, difficulty, situation that any person has regarding people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually more than one. Really new subject, and it is an earth-shaking subject. If you get into this, you will never be the same, because people have been telling me for 30 years now that some version of this book has been around for 30 years, keep telling me it's an eye-opener, and it gets them to look at things that they did not know existed, including themselves and in others.
Oh, that's interesting. It's one of the reasons we are keen to explore. So where did this idea come from? Was there a specific moment or insight that sparked this original idea, if I may ask?
Well, the story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at age 16. Now, of course, at the time, I thought I was going to be engineering physical things, such as airfoils, motors, electrons, and gears and such. But by the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche, because that is the area of greatest unknown, of greatest mystery, and more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people, don't understand the wife, don't understand the daughter, don't understand the husband, don't understand the mother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This goes in all directions. And this subject solves that problem across 35 axes. So to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, working one-on-one with hundreds of clients of every description to help them attain higher levels of enlightenment, stability, emotional regulation, confidence, whatever it was the person wanted. Now, all of my clients improved as a result of our interaction. But I started to notice incidentally that I could predict the outcome of this session.
Okay.
I never told that to anyone, but I made notes. And as the decades rolled by, it became obvious to me that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and recorded. And as a result of our interaction, he would go up to the next level on that scale. Now, this happened thousands and thousands of times over a 40-year period. Sometimes it would happen 5, 6, 7 times in the same session. And again, I didn't tell anybody about this. I just recorded what I saw. Now, by 1995, I had about 32 scales that varied in length between 3 and 7 levels. And there was one scale I had in particular, it was one of the oldest ones, that had 6 levels that I knew was correct because I had been using it for decades. And one day I realized when pondering a difficult client that that client was at a level on that scale that I had not previously observed. In other words, it actually had a 7th level. So as soon as I saw what that seventh level was, it was obvious to me where to insert it into the scale. And when I inserted that seventh level into the sixth level scale, thus making it a seven level scale, at that moment, it manifested mathematically. It went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data, because all of this data jumped out at me. Now, the whole point of mathematics is you start with a formula or an equation and you coax data out of it. That's how Einstein, for example, found E equals mc squared, by that same process. You just use the laws of mathematics and you manipulate the numbers and it gets you to something new. So when you have data present itself like that, without you looking for it, that is a mathematical phenomenon.
Yeah.
So now I had this scale. It had seven levels and all these data that presented themselves that I wasn't even looking for. I said, whoa, whatever this is, it has to be natural law because it's got mathematics embedded in it. And anything that has mathematics embedded in it, like, for example, the Fibonacci sequence, is natural law. So then I thought, wait a minute. I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are also actually seven level scales, but had not been developed all the way. You just have to realize I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So now, knowing what I was looking for, I inspected all these other scales. And in a short period of time, each of them went to seven levels and each of them manifested mathematically. So I now had 32 scales, all based on direct empirical observation, each of which had seven levels and had mathematics embedded in them. Having gone to school for 28 years and being a well-read person, I said to myself, this looks to me like a new subject because I never saw anything like this before. So my next thought was I could go from helping people by the hundreds, which is what I had been doing as a human development engineer, to helping people by the millions if I put this in a book and get it out so people can have it. I wanted people to have this information because it's really useful and powerful. It's not hard to get. And the reason it's not hard to get is it's natural law. So you probably can recall the first time you saw the Pythagorean theorem. You were maybe 12 or 13 or 14, right? You look at it and, you think about, yeah, this makes sense. See, and you've got it. Now, several people have said to me, what book is your book like? And I've said to them, I don't think there's ever been a book like this before. Each one of these 35 scales that's in the book is presented in what you could call a table or a spreadsheet. And that table is very similar to the periodic table of elements.
Right.
But instead of it being for material elements, it's for these various human phenomena. So it's very easy to see. The periodic table makes sense. The first time you look at it, you see, oh, yeah, hydrogen is one, helium is two, lithium is three. I see, this makes sense. It goes down horizontally and vertically, and everything just fits in a certain way. And that's why 100 years later, it's in use all over the world, in whatever language the people speak. And that's what these scales are like. They are periodic tables for the corresponding areas of human phenomena. Now, what I should do now is tell you the names of the 35 scales so you'll know exactly what subject matter is discussed in the book.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I think it will be good. Yes, please.
Yeah. So of the 35 scales, 24 of them I call individual scales, meaning they apply to an individual person. And 11 of them I call group scales, meaning they apply to a group of people. So these are the individual scales: the scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales: the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics. Any one of these scales by itself could dramatically improve the life of the viewer. And let me give you a simple example. I mentioned the scale of motivation. One of the most important things to know about a person is his motivation. Why is this person doing this? That tells you a lot. That's how the police solve crimes. They look for a motive. So you could ask yourself, what's my wife's motivation toward me? What's my son's motivation toward me? What's my pastor's motivation toward me? What's my boss's motivation toward me? Et cetera, et cetera. And you could do this for every person you know and every person you have ever known. And if you know these people well, you will not have difficulty. You'll see it. You go down to 7. Oh, yeah, I see. His motivation is this. Now, when you spot it, you will have an insight. You'll see, oh, that's why he treats me that way. He has this motivation. See, that's an insight.
Right.
So then you could take the same scale and you could reverse the vector and you could ask, what is my motivation toward Mary? What is my motivation toward Job? What is my motivation toward my next door neighbor? What is my motivation toward my grandfather, et cetera? And you could use it again another 200, 300, 400 times for everybody you know or have ever known. And every time you spot it correctly, you have an insight. Oh, what's my grandfather's motivation toward me? And you spot, oh, I see. That explains why he says this and this and this. See? So by the time you finish this exercise that I just described, you will have had, depending on how many people you know, something like 400, 500 insight into all of these relationships. So your mind will be much clearer because you'll know their motive toward you and your motive toward them. And that's a great clarification. Realize this is just one scale because you could do this with all 35 scales. So this is a fruitful source of insight.
Right.
And that's what it's about. It gives you a way to develop your insight about people in a way that's based on natural law. There's no guessing here. I spent about 50 years putting this together because you have to realize during my career as human development engineer, I wasn't thinking about Septemics, but I was observing these things and writing them down. So these phenomena are not new to me.
Right.
So I've been thinking about this since I was a young man. So I spent a lot of time making sure this is correct. Now, remember I told you I decided I'm going to have to write a book.
Yeah.
Right? The first draft was finished in December of 95, and I sent it out in the transcript form to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety of subjects, and they all loved it. They had different responses, but distinctly positive responses, and that told me this is exactly what I think it is, a new subject that could really help people. Because it's natural law. People get this. So somebody will open the book and look at a scale for the first time and say, oh, yeah, this makes sense to me. That's how people get this. You have to realize there's no theory of septemics. This is all based on direct empirical observation.
Right.
I simply observed things and wrote it down and did that until that epiphany I told you about a few minutes ago when that first one expanded in front of me. So now let me tell you, I think your people are going to want to know a definition of how this helps people in a
Right.
general way without talking
Sure.
about specifics, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So I wrote this book to help people. I've had a lifetime of helping people. Each of these 35 skills provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or the beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity.
Right.
If the group, individual, or activity moves persons up the scale, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. So you see, I am giving you a yardstick by which to measure human affairs, which is an entirely new thing. More importantly, just finding out what level you or another person is at on any scale is inherently beneficial and enlightening. Remember, I told you, you'll have a realization. Right. So let's say you study yourself on the scale of basic purposes. Oh, what's my basic purpose? See, I give you the 7 choices. When you find that, that will be a turning point in your life. You'll never forget that moment because what will happen is your whole life will come into focus. Ah, that's what I'm about. And you throw out the other 6. You say, that's fine for other people. But that's not for me. I'm about this. You
Right.
see?
Mhm.
So that happens with all of these scales. So you have to realize that the sky is the limit with the subject.
Right.
Meaning you could just keep using this and using this and using this. And let me explain why I say that. Because you have an insight as a result of using it, you're a little smarter. The second time you use it, that intelligence comes with you to the second opportunity. So you go to another scale, right? Where am I on this scale? Oh, I see. You have another realization. And when you go to the third scale, you take those two realizations with you to the third scale. So you see, as you proceed in this, you're getting smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. So this is what you might call a virtuous cycle, because the more you use it, the smarter you get. The smarter you get, the more you use it. The more you use it, the more you want to use it. The more you want to use it, the more you use it, and the more you use it, the smarter you get. So this just goes on forever. If you live 1,000 years, you'll still be using this because you'll
Nice.
meet new people, you'll have new situations come up, and this is very user friendly. This is like holding up a lens to yourself in the mirror. You know, you look through a lens at yourself in the mirror and you see yourself clearly, or holding up a lens to another person. You see that person more clearly. Remember Sherlock Holmes and all of the stories was going around with a magnifying glass looking at things? That's what this is like. It's like a conceptual magnifying glass because these 7 levels are inarguable. They are correct the way the 3 laws of motion are correct, the way the periodic table is correct. And I know that because I devoted myself to them. Now, once you know the actual level of a person, whether it's yourself or another, on any scale, you can then improve that person by moving him to the next level up.
Right.
Now, if let's say you find you're at level 4, if you make a serious attempt to move to level 3, you will get there. You know why? It's the next level up. If you try to get from level 4 to level 1 or 2, you will fail because it's too steep a gradient. It's not the next thing.
Right.
So you can really help people with this. Let me give you an example. Most people have kids, and most kids have trouble in school, right? So dad sees that Junior is having trouble. He's getting bad grades. He says, Junior, come here, let me show you this. And he opens the book to the scale of scholarship. Well, Junior's 13. He knows what a scholar is. He looks at it and he says, you mean there's a scale of scholarship? And the dad says, yeah. Where are you on this scale? Junior is going to want to know where he is on that scale because he's having trouble with this. And this is opening up for him a new way of viewing this, see, where there might be some relief. So what's going to happen is in a matter of seconds, and I mean like 20, 25 seconds, Junior will find a bracket. He'll say it to the dad, well, I can see right away I'm not at a level 1, 2, or 3. Dad says, that's the top of the scale, and I'm not good at this. Dad says, okay, so it's, for you, it's got to be 4, 5, 6, or 7. Go ahead and read the text, and then you can get it exactly. And T, Junior is going to want to do that. See, because he's already narrowing this down. So he reads it. Dad could help him as a tutor. He comes back. Now that he read it, he looks at us. Now that I read it, I could see him at level 5. That's not great. That's near the bottom of the scale. No wonder I'm having trouble in school. See, that's a realization. And he will have some specific realization. That explains why this, and this. And dad says, well, that's good. Now, you know, we can move you up to the next level. The kid says, you can? Dad says, yes, it tells you in the book how to do that. Kid's probably going to say, well, let's do it. So dad works with Junior using the instructions in the book. It's just like a cookbook. It tells you exactly what things to do. And Junior moves from level 5 up to level 4. So when the next report card comes out, instead of getting C's and D's, he's getting A's and B's. And all of this was done without spending any money, without joining a church, without sending the kids to remedial classes, without hiring a tutor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the bond between the father and the son is better now because the father helped him. So this is a win-win. No matter how you look at this is a win.
Yeah.
And again, this is just one scale. So maybe the next year, dad says, what's the matter, Junior? You're looking unhappy today. He says, well, I had a difficulty with my girlfriend. Oh, really? Tell me about it. See? And dad could do the same thing. Let's look at the scale of relationships. Where is this relationship that you're having with this girl? See? He's going to want to know that. He's going to find it. He's going to have a realization. So that's how this works. It's very user friendly because it's natural law and it addresses Any situation that has to do with people.
That's a very good practical application, and clearly looks like it's resonated with people that you've worked with as well. Could you elaborate on where it's resonated? Different people at different parts of their life, whether personal relationship or work or other scenarios as well.
Well, let me tell you an actual story that occurred with me in my life about 6 months ago. I'm a single guy, and I met this gorgeous blonde. She looked like a movie star. We were both very interested in one another. So now we're going through the usual preliminaries. What do you like to do in your spare time? What types of movies do you like? What type of music do you listen to? You know, all that stuff, right? So we had at least a half a dozen conversations like that. And I noticed in one of the early conversations that she was low on a certain scale. So then later we had another conversation. I realized, oh, she's low on another scale. And I realized in another conversation, she's low on a third scale. I said, wait a minute to myself. This is a downscale person. Yeah, she's pretty and glamorous and all that, but do I really want to get involved with somebody like this? No. So, so I just said to her, pass, no thanks. She was shocked. We didn't have any kind of a fight or anything. She just couldn't believe it. You know why? I was probably the first guy who ever did that to her because she's so beautiful. Most guys would have jumped right in and had a train wreck and regretted it. So that saved me a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of irritation, you know, because then I knew this is not what I'm looking for. Yeah, she's pretty and all that, but this is not the right person.
Yeah.
So I was able to move on. See? So think about how many times in your life so sought a relationship, that didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
If you had this booked, you could have done that in one or two meetings.
Right.
So this really, really speeds things up as
Ah,
far
that's
as
great. That's good. So, in our world of sustainability, we try to change the minds of leaders, sometimes board and executives. So, there is a constant struggle, I have to say. Perhaps it's just me, but I've noticed within the industry where there is a struggle to shift mindsets. How can Septemics help us understand the resistance to change?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me put it this way. Let's say you have a business partner, right? And you have some difficulty with him. You could find that person's level on all 35 scales. Where is he on the scale of basic purposes? Where is he on the scale of personal influence? Where is he on the scale of choice? Every time you do, you have an insight. By the time you finish that exercise, you will understand him better than he understands himself, or better or worse. See, and you might say, well, I can see that this guy is high on these skills, but he's low on these skills. So let me try to help him. So you say, Fred, come over here. Let me show you something. See, Fred has trouble controlling things. Well, there's a scale of control. Take a look at this scale. See? And he's going to go through the same thing. He's going to say, where are you on this scale? He's going to say, you mean there's a scale of control? You say, yeah, where are you on it? He's going to want to know because he has trouble with that. See? And then he's going to find a bracket. He's going to say something like, well, I can see right away. I'm not at 5 or 6 or 7. That's the bottom of the scale. And that's got nothing to do with me. Okay, fine. See? Read it and then you can get it exactly. So you go through the same process. He'll have a big realization. Oh, now I see. I'm at level 4. That's not so great. See? So, perfect example. Now, sometimes you can get the person himself to use the book to improve himself. Sometimes you can't. But your understanding of the person will make a big difference. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I have a friend, wonderful guy. I've known him for many years. I like just about everything about him. He's an admirable person, right? Smart, successful, family man. Well, he is what I would call a political extremist.
Right.
Now, political extremists are the people who cause all the trouble. Political extremists are the ones who do assassinations, right? Who engage in terrorism, like these people who are attacking these Tesla dealerships. Those are extremists. So I know this about this person. So when it comes up, I just tiptoe around the subject because I know what I'm dealing with. See? So he'll start saying, Donald Trump. Okay, how's your son? Oh, my son is doing well. He's living in Maryland now. Really? Where town is it? And we're off the subject.
Okay.
The
So, you
subject.
avoid unnecessary conflicts.
And so you can preserve the relationship that way by by knowing a person's strengths and a person's weaknesses, you can sort of lean on the strengths and sort of avoid the weaknesses. Now, the truth is, most of us are high on some skills and low on others. So if you have a friend, if you analyze this friend, you can say, oh, well, no wonder we're friends. He's high in this skill. He's high in this skill. He's high in this skill. These are the things I admire about him. See, he's high in these. But then you're going to spot, this other skill, not so good. So we're not going to mess with that.
Yeah.
See? It's possible that if you get him to read the book, at some point he may be able to resolve this for himself. He may come to you. I can't tell you how many people came to me with realization. I realized that I was at this level on this scale. Really? Tell me about that. See, it's a big epiphany. Yeah. And then he can move himself up to a higher level, and then it's an improvement.
Yeah. Good. So you've outlined the hierarchies in human phenomena. Which ones are most relevant to driving cultural or organizational transformation, would you say?
There really is no one size fits all, because this is about people and every person is unique. So even the way a person thinks about one of these scales is going to be different from the way another person thinks about that same scale. But the way to use this is you analyze the person so you already know where he is on that scale. And then you use the book, you get him to use the book to spot it himself, and then you help him to move up to a higher level. And no matter what the context is, that's going to benefit. Your relationship with him got better. Your understanding of him got better. You see? Now, obviously, if you're in a certain context, you're going to look at different things. Now, we talked before about motivation, right? That's a big deal, but it depends on the situation. So let's say you're dating some woman for 3 years and you're thinking about getting married. Wouldn't it be smart to find out, why does this woman want to marry me? I mean, isn't that a reasonable question to ask? I'm not saying to ask her. I'm saying open the book. There's only 7 choices, right? You know her because you've been hanging out with her for 3 years. You say, oh, I see. She's at level 1 love. That's why she wants to marry me. She loves me. Let's set the date. But maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe when you go through this analysis, you say, now that I think about this, I think she wants to marry me because I drive a Lamborghini. I have a 60-foot yacht. I fly my own Learjet. I live in a $15 million condo and I have $10 million in the bank. See, that's a different motivation. That's level 4 money. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. It's just what it is. Now, what you do with that, that's up to you. See, that's what I mean about this is very personal. You might look at it and say, okay, well, that's not the first woman who wanted to marry me for my money, but this one is smart, pretty, cultured, funny, uh, congenial. So I'm going to marry her anyway. See, and you might live happily ever after. But maybe that's not your thought process. Maybe you think, I don't want to marry somebody who wants to marry me for my money. I want to marry somebody who wants to marry me for myself. See, and you might break up with her. Now, in that latter category, you might think that you would be upset about it. And you're wrong. You wouldn't. You would break up with her, but you wouldn't be upset about it. You would be relieved. You would say, wow, I dodged a bullet. It's a good thing I figured this out now before I wound up owing her $15,000 a month in alimony.
Right. That's a good insight. So I know you mentioned about the culture, which is different, but different for different people. But I'm curious to explore, what if someone was to pick out your book, but from a company, cultural, organizational setting, they have a predetermined markers, let's say purpose, challenging job and flexibility, whichever these are. Is there a way of picking your model to, for example, create a survey and say these are the ideal scores in 1s to 7s or 1s to 4s in this aspect, which we know will be different and no one person will fit, which we appreciate that. But I'm curious to know if someone could pick your work and apply it in a way which you probably haven't envisioned it, but using your methodology of the key concepts, which maybe still be subjective. Is that a possibility at all, or is it big no?
Well, let me tell you, the subtitle of this book is Analysis, Prediction, and Management of Human Affairs. These skills enable you to analyze the person. And because you analyze the person, you can then predict the person. And because you can predict the person, you can then manage the person. You have a guy who's having a lot of trouble with his wife, right? You can't predict. Well, what'd you do that for? He's not predicting, right? He can't manage this relationship. Okay, that's because he can't analyze her. If you were to analyze her across these 35 scales, he would understand her better than she understands himself. Well, okay, she's at this level on this scale. Of course, she's going to do that. That's what a person at that level does. You know, let me give you an analogy that makes this real. Let's say, I'm into gardening and I love flowers. Let's say you invite me to your house to see your garden. So I show up at Enoch's house and I say, oh, he's got hydrangeas, forget-me-nots, tulips, roses, chrysanthemums, begonias. Now, the reason I can analyze it that way is I know a lot about flowers. If you wanted me to, I could advise you, well, these need more sun, these need more shade, these need a lot of water, these need less water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you were to bring some 5-year-old kid into your garden, that kid would see and smell exactly what I saw and smelled. But all the kid can say is, these are pretty and they smell nice. That's all he knows. Now, most adults are like that child as regards people. They don't know what they're looking at, right? They don't know what a chrysanthemum is or what a hydrangea is. So they can't analyze it. That is why more than 50% of the marriages in the United States end in divorce. Clearly, those people did not understand one another. They did not know what they were dealing with, or they wouldn't have got married in the first place, or they would have married someone else who fitted in with them better. So that's how you use this.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
so if people are involved, this is relevant. But think about it. Almost everybody deals with people all the time. I don't care what you do. Let's say you have a hot dog stand, right? You work by yourself selling hot dogs on a corner in a city, right? You've still got to deal with all of your customers. You've still got to deal with your suppliers. You've still got to deal with the regulators who give you rules about what to do and not to do, right? So you're still dealing with people. So there's no getting away from this.
Yeah.
So this is big. This is really big. So a guy gets this book, he reads it. He says, wait a minute. This is my secretary, Margaret. This is exactly how she is. This describes her. Now, I don't know his secretary. How did I describe her so perfectly without ever meeting her? It's just like if I say, okay, I have this creature. It's got 4 legs. It's got a tail. It's got fur. It's got whiskers. Okay. And it goes meow. And you say, well, that's a
It's a
cat,
cat.
right? Even if I don't know the word cat, I can tell you what. So when this guy looks at this is my secretary. His relationship with her just got better. He will have realization. That explains why she did this, and this, because she's at this level on this scale. See?
Yeah.
So even if you're not intending to do it, it happens. Just like when I was meeting this girl 6 months ago, I wasn't doing anything with Septemics. It was just right in front of my face. It's like I walk down the street, I walk by a garden, right? I look in the garden. Oh, the guy's got chrysanthemums. That's nice. See? Because I know.
So now that we've had this discussion, clearly there are explanation of the human behavior, but how do you respond to skeptics who say it's too philosophical and too abstract, even though from what you've explained, there is a method to those processes?
Well, first of all, I went through a fantastic amount of difficulty to make this book accessible to people who can read English reasonably well. And I know I succeeded because some version of this book has existed now for almost 30 years. And I have been watching people get this. Some guy just opens to a particular scale and he looks, oh, yeah, this makes sense. People get this right away. That's number one. Number two, if you actually read the book, you'll see it's not hard to get.
That's
And
good.
as far as using it, that's not hard either because people tell you their levels. It comes right out of their mouths. So if you know what you're looking for, you try to analyze a person on a certain scale, see, he'll tell you. If you look at not only what he says, how he acts, what choices he makes, his eyes, his body motion, and all that, people tell you their levels.
Okay, so what is your final advice for anyone listening about how to implement the Septemics? I know you've shared a lot, but as a parting message, what would be advice for the listener, please?
Okay, well, what I should say is this. The data in this book are vital for every person. and can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random. So you'll have parts of your life that you can't figure out. And you use this material and it will analyze it, which means it falls apart in front of you. Oh, now I see. That's what this is about. And I cannot overstate how important this is because I've been watching people use this for 30 years. People get this. It's not hard to use. And because you're dealing with natural law, it's reliable.
That's great. Huge thank you to Jim Marshall for sharing these incredible insights. So if our listeners want to learn more about your work, about the book, where can they find you, please, Jim?
Well, I would invite your viewers to my website, is septemics.com, septemics.com, where you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what many reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself, and there's even a 15-minute pre-recorded introduction to Septemics that you could listen to that explains it to a new person in 15 minutes.
That's great. I'll share the Septemics link in the description. Thanks, Jim. It's been a good conversation, and I've learned a lot around the personal transformation and the various stages. And I'm curious with the group. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Enoch.